Happy Women's History Month. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Lower East Side here in the city, powered by the East Side Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation, now a constant partner to the new bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode almost every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. The COVID-19 cases in Detroit have been rising sharply. In fact, just today, Detroit's public health officer, Denise Fair, declared a local state of emergency in Detroit. Vaccines eligibility has expanded. The COVID variant is here. What does all of it mean? Here to help us make sense of it all is Dr. Maritza McIntyre. She is a virologist with over 20 years of experience in the development, evaluation, and regulation of gene therapy, biological and small molecule products. She has held roles at Bamboo Therapeutics, a Pfizer company, by the way, the FDA, and Advanced Therapy Partners. She now serves as the Chief Development Officer at StrideBio. Dr. McIntyre, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thanks, Orlando.
We're happy to have you. Also joining us today is Dr. Paul Thomas. Dr. Thomas is a board-certified family medicine physician practicing in Corktown. His practice is PlumHealth DPC, a direct primary care service that is the first of its kind in Detroit and Wayne County. His mission is to deliver affordable, accessible healthcare services in Detroit and beyond. You've seen him on Local 4, Channel 7, and just about every other news outlet in the city of Detroit. Dr. Thomas, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Orlando and Donna, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Glad that you can join us.
So glad that you can join us. Human check-in. It's a beautiful and sunny day in the city of Detroit, upwards of 60 degrees. How does this day find each of you? Donna, how is today finding you?
Indoors at my desk in front of my computer, not at all enjoying the great outdoors. I think the best I'm going to get out of this is Kevin is going to grill me some fish for dinner. But other than that, by the time we're done, my days escape me.
I'm always tempted to come over your house after recording because you're always talking about dinner afterward, and it always sounds so good.
How's yours?
Oh, it's been good. So I had to facilitate a meeting today in partnership with Enterprise Partners. And so the meeting started at 9 o'clock. I woke up and got dressed, showered and everything, and went to log on to the Zoom platform and find out that there is a Comcast outage in my area. So I am in deep panic mode. I'm tweeting from my phone at Xfinity like expletives. I'm upset, but I had to figure out how to access all of the documents that I had written up in the form of questions and discussion prompts on Google Docs on my phone while also Zooming from my phone. It was a crazy morning, but I was able after that meeting to get out and drive to the Eastside Community Network offices and enjoy the sunshine while I was doing it. So today finds me in a really, really good space. What about you, Dr. McIntyre?
I'm doing well. Like Donna, I have been inside most of the day. I am actually in Raleigh, North Carolina, where it is also a beautiful sunny day, and outside of my window, I can see my azaleas blooming. So I am thankful for that. At least I have a nice view outside, and I did manage to, between many Teams calls, that's my usual platform, to get out and walk my dogs. So I'm happy to be here talking with all of you today.
We're happy to have you and happy that you're safe. Dr. Paul Thomas, how does this beautiful Detroit day find you?
It finds me doing well. I get to take care of some really kind people in my office every day. So I got to see a few of my patients in the office, take care of some health concerns that they had. I picked up some EMA on the way home. My wife is a veterinarian. EMA. Oh yeah, shout out to EMA and all their staff.
They're Restaurant of the Year last year or the year before that?
Yeah, I think it was 2018, but they're phenomenal. We love them. and they always deliver. It's just an amazing product. So I picked that up on my way home. My wife, Amanda, is a veterinarian. So we have 3 dogs and 2 cats. So when it's nice like this, when I come home, we walk the dogs. And, this is one of the first times that our dog has started to do the roll, go on her back and like put her feet up and do the like happy butt shake, that it's like finally warm enough to roll around in the ground outside. So that always makes me happy, because now it's like officially spring when that happens.
Yeah.
The happy butt shake.
It's a real thing, man. It's a real thing.
You gotta take pictures and post them. I want to see the dog doing that.
I will.
I'm not going to try to draw a direct line, but I noticed food deliveries got a little bit harder after people got those stimulus checks. I had to for myself. I was like, my goodness, I feel like a Republican. What is going on?
Spending is real.
For 2 hours. Well, because people now, they have the choices. And so people who have been forced to work during the pandemic were able to take a little time off. And so my conveniences were harmed for a little while, but I'm happy, in general, that people, I couldn't understand. I was like, did everybody go on strike? What's going on?
They're taking some time off. They ain't trying to drive all day.
And
yeah.
In the midst of a pandemic, we almost need people to spend more time at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop acting like it's business as usual. And so I'm very happy that some people had the luxury of not having to spend time taking care of me during this pandemic, and actually take care of their families and spend some time at home. But yeah, forced me to go outside. I started going to the grocery store again and buying things for myself.
Because you are fully vaccinated, am I right?
Yeah, I am fully vaccinated. I'm 100%, and my mother turned 88 on Sunday.
Happy birthday, Miss McIntyre.
So I just have this to say, my mother turned 88. Now, Maritza is my first cousin, and her father is the baby of the family at 80. He'll be 87 in May.
Wow.
My mother is 88. Her sister, our aunt, is turning 89, and she has been living by herself in Mexico, but apparently she's moving back to California before she travels here. And their oldest sister is 91. We are so blessed to have all of them. And through the pandemic, just imagine how blessed we feel. So we celebrated my mother. We all had our, double shots, and we all had our 2-week waiting period, and we were able to get together. And so when people say, don't get vaccinated because life doesn't really change, my mother really made it a point to say that she wanted us to celebrate her, and she was tired of not seeing her family. And so on her birthday, she was able to, because of, the shots that we were able to receive. So, yeah.
And that's a good snapshot of where we could all be if we, once we're all vaccinated. So
that's an amazing
happy to see that you were able to see her.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And I love hearing that families coming back together after, getting the vaccine and reconvening.
Very, very lonely for seniors, and you have to think about that. The isolation is lonely for everybody, but for seniors, my mother at some point was wondering whether she was going to ever see certain people in the family again. We have to think about that. That's why I'm so passionate about us all doing our part about public health, because public health is not, people say, what's a personal decision, as if somehow public health is personal. And it is, but it's also public. So anyway, I know we're going to get into that later, but I did want to share that little tidbit, because it's probably the most meaningful thing to me that happened was being able to celebrate my mom.
Thank you for sharing that, Donna.
If I may, I'm in a similar situation. My grandparents are 94, and they recently moved into an assisted living facility. It's one of the hardest decisions my mom ever had to make, because they were in declining function. And she knew that if they went into the assisted living facility, they could die from a COVID outbreak. But it just simply wasn't safe for them to be at home. So, it's been a long time since I've been able to hug my grandparents. And, I think it affects a lot of different families like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we'll probably get into it more, but I think that deciding to take the vaccine, or deciding to really forego seeing family or other human interaction, is all about risk. decisions. And I actually moved to Raleigh a year ago. So I moved here not knowing anyone, and the state shut down. It's been very hard. And Donna was great when I first moved here and was going crazy that she organized Zoom happy hours for me, and so that I could see family. But sometimes I do get to that point where I just say, like, I can't, like, I just need to go out. But then I start running through my mind, like, what will I think, how will I feel, or what would my family feel if I get COVID and I die or I'm sick? And especially, like, in some ways, it's been a year, so you can say I'm tired of it. But on the flip side, if you've done it this long, do you really want to waste all of that, sacrifice and the good decisions you made because you're tired? Like, that's almost, you need to run that through your mind. That's what I do. That's how I keep going.
So simple, it's so hard for so many people. And we're talking about, the reunification of families. If we all do our part, because some of us have really been without this past year, Donna's mom being one. It's time for Fresh Off the Press, everybody. News that we are thinking about. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. I'm so excited about this, Donna, Fresh Off the Press.
Detroit's welcome first Black-owned grocery store since 2014, and it's all crowdfunded. This is by Kyla Wright and Chanel Stitton for the Detroit Free Press. And I must say, it's in my neighborhood. It's within walking distance on that corridor of creativity called Manistee Street. We have more creative things happening on this one street in Jefferson Chalmers than any place in the city of Detroit. You start out with Feed 'em Freedom growers, as well as an amphitheater, the solar powered. They have beautiful mural art. Go down the street a little bit further, and now you have this grocery store. And if you go down a little bit further, that's where you have Detroit of Bloom. You have an outdoor theater. I don't know what it is. That's a solar panel, something or another. You have the Detroit Treehouse Collective. You have, I think it's something like 287 Manistee, which is a cultural hub that was developed by a resident in the community. And now I'm so excited because we're going to have a grocery store, and he is the founder of, Raphael White is the founder of Make the Hood Great Again, which is a media company, a mechanic shop, a community garden, and most recently Taste the Diaspora of Detroit. So with this grocery store, he's going to not only serve people in the community, but he's also going to sell food that is grown by people in the community, and hopefully some of the flowers from Detroit to bloom. I'm really excited about this. He's been crowdfunding for a while. He came on our show, didn't he, Orlando?
He did, right before we shut down last year with Idrit Goudet.
Yeah, so he's been crowdfunding. This is all crowdfunded, y'all. He decided he did not want to raise money from corporations, and so he raised $55,000 for crowdfunding. And when he owns this store, it's going to be his, and so it's a little corner store in the community. When I say corner store, it still has the lottery tickets painted on the outside, so they probably also sell liquor, but he's going to be selling food in the hood. So congratulations, Raphael. I remember when you were talking about it, and I was thinking it was going to go on a major corridor, and instead it's going on the creative corridor of Jefferson Chalmers, right at Manistee in Essex.
You know what? I want to tip my hat to my friend Rafa Wright for his staying power. He has had many starts and stops with this project, many broken promises. I mean, since 2014, we're talking now, 6 or 7 years of nonstop stop and go. And he's finally coming into something that is going to be promising. And in addition to the crowdfunding money that he raised, he's now taking investors. You can invest and become an owner of a neighborhood grocer for as small as $50, guys. I mean, who wouldn't want to invest in, the latest Black-owned grocery store in the city of Detroit. And so I just got to say, at the risk of sounding like somebody's old uncle, Rafa, right? I am so proud of you, man.
Does that make me? I do want to say that there are 246 investors who have generated so far $20,000. And if you go on this story, they will tell you how you can invest money. I think, where is it? It is neighborhood-grocery.com.
That's right.
You become a donor or an investor in this.
Yeah. And, I got to meet Rafa as well. And he's just an amazing man, a very kind person. And he also has that GoFundMe page that's still funding right now. They've raised $59,000 out of a $100,000 goal. So that's still up there.
Oh, wow. So they've raised $4,000 since this story has printed. Congratulations to him. I know it's been, like Orlando said, it's been a journey, but he has had a vision and he has been uncompromising in his belief about what he needed to do. And now he is in my neighborhood.
And Donna's Jefferson Chalmers get everything. I can't even know.
We get all the flood water. We get a grocery store. Two stories today, and one of them was flooding, and the other one was the grocery store. And I decided to go with the grocery store because at least that's a positive story. But yeah, we get a lot over here. Yeah. Orlando, what do you have?
Fresh off the press, sentenced to COVID-19, one inmate's struggle to stay safe during a pandemic. This is an op-ed in Bridge, Detroit by inmate Shokel McKay. One of the things that is always lingering in the back of my mind ever since COVID-19 came to Michigan March 10th of 2020 is, what are we going to do with our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated and how we are going to protect them? I am on record on this show asking the Michigan Department of Correction Chief Medical Officer that question. I've asked Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist that question. I'm constantly asking the question, in part because I'm worried about that population of people, and also in part because I have family who is incarcerated. And this story, this opinion piece, it is jarring to say the least. You have an inmate who has been in prison since he was 16 or 17 years old. He's now 26 years old. And watching how and telling the story how it is virtually impossible to be safe and to socially distance in prison, how guards have been lax in wearing PPE themselves, but also providing PPE for inmates. My brother tells the same story. I remember last year, my brother called me and he said, you have to do something. You have to do something about what's going on in here. And I'm like, I don't know what I can do. And he said something to me that shook me. He said, I was sentenced to a few years. I was not sentenced to death. And a couple of months later, my brother contracted COVID-19 and was in the infirmary. The crazy thing about contracting the virus as an inmate in the Michigan Department of Corrections is your family spends an ungodly amount of money taking care of you while you are in prison, on clothes, on coats, on television, on food, on books, all of it. So, inmates gather a ton of property and accumulate a ton of property. When you contract a virus, they confiscate all of your property and they throw it away. They throw it away.
What?
They throw it away. McKay tells the story of his property being confiscated and thrown away, not because he contracted the virus, but because he moved. So I got two stories, two quick points to make really quick. When my brother contracted COVID-19, he was moved to the infirmary. He lost all of his property. They let us know that they had to dispose of his property because, it could be something on it. And so we as a family had to, once again, pony up economically to make sure that he had everything that he needed: books, food, coat, everything, right? We were prepared for that. There was a transparent process around that. I'll give the MDOC credit there. I have two brothers who are incarcerated. My oldest brother is incarcerated. He was moved to another prison and told that his property was going to go ahead of him. He, number one, was never moved. They came and took his property. And when I talked to officials at the prison, they said that the property went ahead. They have to get the property back. Suffice it to say, he never got any of his property back. I'm talking about pictures that we sent. I'm talking about books. I'm talking everything, right? And that stuff is expensive. It is expensive to be a loved one of an inmate, right? And so many unanswered questions. And one of the quotes that he said in here that really just shook me. He said, instead of going back to the facility that I came from, I was forced to go to another prison temporarily. Upon my arrival there, all of my property was destroyed, including 10 books purchased by my friends and family and all of my hygiene products. That was the other thing my brother was ranting and raving about. And then he said this, I watched as they were thrown into a trash can. I was devastated, and it was a reminder that in the MDOC, I am considered less than human. What kind of operation are we running within the Michigan Department of Corrections where inmates lose their property, they're not compensated for it, and that onus is again on the family? I want to give you a little bit of numbers. About 3,000, a little bit over 3,000 Michigan Department of Corrections employees, guards, have caught or contracted COVID-19, and more than 25,000 people within the MDOC inmates have contracted the virus. This is laying bare the inequity that we all know exists, that we choose to ignore because we don't see these people on a day-to-day basis. I am admonishing our listeners, I am admonishing city government, state government, anybody with a lever of power to do something about this. Yeah. We have to do something about this. This is inhumane. These people are still people. Stats, Black people are about 14% of the population in Michigan. Black people make up over 50% of the Michigan Department of Correction population. We are overrepresented in the MDOC. We have to talk about it. We have to lay it bare. We can't ignore it because they're away. We have to bring attention to this. So I want to shout out Shaquille McKay, an inmate who wrote into Bridge Detroit this op-ed for being brave enough to tell his story. And I hope and I pray that he doesn't experience backlash from the prison staff, guards, warden, what have you, because that is also a real thing, which is why my brother has not come forward and written his story, because he's afraid of the backlash that he will get. Donna?
I mean, I just think that we really have to look at the system of incarcerating people and the fact that they are out of sight and out of mind of most people who are voting people, most policymakers, most people inside of the communities. And the only people who really know what's happening are family members or people who are returning citizens themselves and understand. So we live, they talk about two Detroits and two Americas. I think that the prison system is not really America. I think it's something else. It is this closed system where anything goes, where you have prison labor and you have people making money off of the people there. It's really crazy. And so I'm really hopeful that our awareness has been raised and there's a growing number of people who know about it and who are going to make demands on part of people who are incarcerated, because as you pointed out, it's not just the sickness, it is the phone calls to people, it is having to pay for people, it's the fact that people leave prison with debt, it's the fact that people in Florida leave prison with debt, and until they pay that debt, they can't vote. It is the denial of citizenship, and it is historic. And so I think the documentary 13 speaks to some of that, the fact that, on these shores, there's always been a group of people who have been an exploitable labor force, right? And used to be slaves and now they're prisoners. There's always been a group of people whose citizenship has been denied, And it used to be people who were enslaved. It used to be Chinese coolies, and it used to be Native Americans. And now that we have granted citizenship to people on that level, now we have immigrants who are being treated a certain type of way, and you have people who are in prison. And I think it's important that we understand and really start trying to dissect the impact of how our economy is structured and the economic value of prisons. When you look at where prisons are located, whole economies are based in parts of our state around incarcerating people. And when you start talking about downsizing it, it is really damaging. So, I think also when you start looking at the way that our boundaries are drawn in the state, we're in the middle of redistricting right now. And when you look at the way boundaries are drawn, the municipalities that house prisoners have an outsized impact. First of all, every prisoner counts in terms of a census. And so
where they are incarcerated.
Where they are incarcerated, not where they are from. And so, there's value in putting them in this little small town, concentrating them there, using them for their votes. You're not even 2/3, you're not even 3/5, you're just nothing. So I have really strong reactions to the whole thing. And certainly the pandemic is the kind of opportunistic issue that plays on all of the vulnerabilities of existing people and makes it all worse. Didn't cause the problems, but it certainly exposed them, and it certainly worsened the problems. And so I really hope that we really do look at a more comprehensive look. We pick up where Michelle Alexander left off, and a lot of people decided that Donald Trump had fixed mass incarceration because he signed one bill, but mass incarceration remains a terrible problem and a stain on our nation. It should be a stain on all of our conscience.
Dr. McIntyre or Dr. Thomas, any comments on that?
Yeah, it's really sad that the coronavirus pandemic affects all of us, and it really affects the most vulnerable among us. That's why it's so important for everyone to take the vaccine, because, for example, the virus is making its way into prisons via the people who work there, the kitchen staff, the guards, the administrators. So it's imperative that every single one of those people is vaccinated to prevent the spread of the virus in those communities. And so, yet again, we're seeing the coronavirus pandemic affect the most vulnerable people and have the most severe effects on people who are vulnerable in our communities.
Yeah, and I think I would echo what Donna said. I mean, these problems were here, but the coronavirus pandemic did bring it to the minds of people who don't necessarily have to see it because they don't have loved ones in prison, et cetera. So there's just things that we don't even know. It's one thing to hear and see statistics. So I think intellectually we all knew, right, that we have a mass incarceration problem. We incarcerate more of our population than any other country in the world, and that on top of that, there is this bias where we are incarcerating Black bodies. Having this coronavirus, as Paul said, being brought to people who we've taken out of society, and so that and they have very little to no ability even to protect themselves because they're at the mercy of the system. So it does just refocus that lens, and could have been an opportunity for us to kind of start to deliver equity. And I think in some states, incarcerated people were prioritized, but again, it depends on the state. Yeah.
No, if people don't pose a danger, and the only reason they're there is to punish them, that's a whole nother thing, and it's really sickening to me. I do wonder about whether or not on the priority list, have we gotten vaccines into prisons in Michigan?
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope we are tracking that and monitoring that to make sure that those people who feel trapped have a way of having access to the same resources that we're going to be talking about today. Because, I think that health resources, but again, you have to ask yourself why we incarcerate so many people anyway. It's not like I can see, there's certain people I'm afraid of, and I can see lock them up. And there are even some people I'm like, lock them up and throw away the key because they're going to come out, rape and kill no matter what. But that is not the majority of people who are incarcerated. A lot of people are incarcerated because they have broken status offenses. We've legalized weed, but there's people who sold weed are in prison right now. And there's people who carry these sentences. There's people who have committed, say, credit card fraud or things like that. And we don't think I'm going to take away your computer and put a tether on your ankle, but I'm going to put you in prison and keep you there. And a lot of research shows that keeping people in prison for long periods of time is damaging. And really, when you dehumanize people inside of a system and let them out, you really are destroying families. You're destroying communities. You're destroying children. You're destroying parents. So I would love to pick that subject back up, Orlando, so we can talk more fully again about that. We had some people on. We had some prison advocate, Shaka Senghor and Yusuf, oh my goodness.
Yusuf Shakur.
Yusuf Shakur, I'm sorry,
Unofficial co-host of Authentically Detroit.
Exactly. We need Yusuf back to really give life to this conversation. But I do want to talk about the virus.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start with Maritza. Maritza, you grew up in Detroit and went to Wayne State University and somehow ended up becoming a virologist. You're the first and only person I knew as a young person who was a virologist. What in the world is that?
So a virologist is someone who studies viruses. And so, yes, I went to Wayne State. I got a bachelor's degree in biology and was introduced to research at Wayne State. That was where I first started doing research through an NIH-sponsored program called Minority Access to Research Careers. So, we all know that, when we're young and well, at least when we were younger, it was, Black child grow up and become a doctor or a lawyer. Now there's also sports, but I didn't do either one of those things. I didn't become a lawyer or a doctor, at least not a medical doctor. I do have a PhD in virology that I got from the University of Chicago, studying the human papillomavirus, which actually can cause genital cancers, and other strains of it cause warts. So that's what I do. Since that time, I did go on to work at the FDA for 10 years. So I reviewed clinical trials. I know about the drug development process. And I've worked at a couple of different companies, including a company that had a smallpox vaccine go through this sort of emergency use type of process. And it is now fully approved. And now my specialty is gene therapy. And there we actually use viruses, but we take out most of their harmful genes and use them to put in genes that are defective. So for example, people with hemophilia or muscular dystrophy, which is something that I was involved in developing a gene therapy for muscular dystrophy that's in clinical trials now. And two of the vaccines, the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca vaccine are based on using a different virus to bring in the coronavirus protein to induce immunity. So that's all within my wheelhouse, let's say.
Yes, Maritza's always been the smart one, right? So it's like, she was in college, she said, look, I got 100%. I was like, when don't you get 100% on everything? Okay, You get 100% and all the bonus points. That's what I didn't know about her. But Maritza, talk about this. With the virus, with the Pfizer and Moderna virus, vaccines. Those vaccines, a lot of people said they got developed so quickly that they cannot be trusted. Why should we trust Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, considering the fact that Donald Trump supported them at one time, number one, and number two, they got developed quickly.
Should we be supporting anything that Donald Trump supported?
Well, yeah, but he changes his mind so often that it becomes a non-factor, right? And I would say that they were developed despite Donald Trump. They were people, he was still denying that there even was a dangerous virus, and, Moderna, NIH, Pfizer, all of these other groups were already developing the vaccines. So that's something to be aware of. I think because I am the nerd that Donna and my brothers and sisters and cousins have always said I am, I was aware that there was this, virus circulating in China, like in November of 2019. So people who follow this knew, and as the months were going by, were increasingly becoming concerned and started to gear up. I think one thing that you have to understand is that there is machinery that has been put in place in the government to prepare for pandemics. So let's talk a little bit when people say that these vaccines were rushed. Back in, after 9/11 and the anthrax, remember the anthrax scare? It became clear that we as a country did not have a system that would be able to respond rapidly to a bioterror event, a radiation kind of threat event, or a pandemic that might require a new drug or vaccine. And so this whole concept of emergency use authorization was put into legislation. And it was considered at that time a very good thing that we had a mechanism by which we could safely within the context of some new health threat, try to develop something and make it available to people faster than a normal process going through the FDA. So there are requirements. There has to be evidence that these products, be it the vaccines, not right now, or other drugs that have been approved in this way, to have them in a stockpile should there ever be a radiation attack. We have things like that stockpiled in the US. And there are parameters. They do have to be safe, and there has to be at least some evidence of efficacy, but you can't wait 5 years the way you typically do to develop a vaccine, right? In 5 years, we would, either all be dead or just sitting in our homes with no economy. And so that's something that you have to understand, is that this isn't something that came out of the blue. There was a system developed for it. So that's one thing. The type of vaccine that Moderna and Pfizer, they are new vaccines. There is no vaccine on the market that is made the way they are, what's called an mRNA vaccine. That being said, there's a lot of research. Moderna has a lot of other mRNA vaccines in clinical trials right now. So they had the know-how, they had some amount of understanding of how these types of vaccines work, what a reaction might be. And NIH was actually working in collaboration with Moderna specifically on other types of coronavirus. There's different species of coronavirus. Other types of coronavirus vaccines. So it's sort of like, I mean, we're all from Detroit, right? Like a lot of car models are all built on the same body. So it's not completely new. And I think that our media does a disservice by not explaining those things.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomas, want to hear from you about number one, the PlumHealth practice, but what are you seeing with your patients? Have you had patients with either the COVID-19 virus or the variant, and what are you doing? How are you counseling your patients toward the vaccine?
Yeah, those are great questions. A little bit about our practice. We're called PlumHealth. We do a membership model for healthcare because we believe that healthcare should be affordable and accessible for everyone. And so we achieve that through that membership. My patients can call, text me, email me anytime they need to. And then they can come in and see us anytime they need to. We guarantee a same day or next day appointment. Throughout the pandemic, my job has been teaching my patients and educating my patients and the broader community about the threat of coronavirus and the real effects of it, the symptoms, what to look out for, how to manage it, what not to do to manage it, and other things. And right now in this moment, we're coordinating a lot of testing. We can do less than 24-hour turnaround for PCR testing. So somebody drives up to our curbside, we trot out with a clipboard, we have them sign some paperwork, we swab their nose, and we get the result to them the next morning, usually around 10 a.m. And so that way, if anybody has any symptoms, we can help them identify if they actually have coronavirus. The other thing that we do is we counsel people through their symptoms. Unfortunately, we have had a patient who died from coronavirus, and that was probably one of the saddest days of the year for myself and my practice partner who was directly caring for her. But people in our community have a lot of risk factors. Let's face it, Detroit is one of the most unhealthy cities in America. We have higher rates of obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure than other similar communities. And just as a nation, 2/3 of American adults are overweight or obese, and just about 50% of Americans have hypertension. And these are the risk factors that put us at greater risk for severe outcomes. So I really look at my patients holistically, help guide them through their symptoms, guide them on how to get a vaccine in the first place. So if you want to get a vaccine, I try to stay really up to date on the best resources to get vaccinated right now. And currently, if you live in Detroit, the TCF Center is processing people through their vaccination center in about 30 to 45 minutes. Some people are spending about 30 minutes at the Ford Field site to get vaccinated. So the final thing that we're working on that I'll talk about for the moment is getting the vaccine for our clinic, because I can't tell you the number of people who've come in and said, I really want to get vaccinated, but I simply don't trust going through TCF or Ford Field. And I want you, Dr. Paul, to give me my vaccine, because I give patients vaccines all the time for flu shots, for Tdap, for hepatitis A when they travel or have a food exposure, MMR, et cetera. And they expect me, the family physician, to be able to vaccinate them. It's been extremely difficult for us to get vaccine. We haven't been able to yet. And I'm terribly frustrated about this.
One of the questions that comes up for me is, while vaccine eligibility is being broadened to 16 or over, we're also seeing a very sharp spike in variant cases in the city of Detroit and the state as a whole. Earlier today, Denise Fair, Detroit's public health officer, declared a local state of emergency. Dr. McIntyre, how does this happen? How do we have so much access to the vaccine, yet we're seeing cases and numbers rise? Actually, Michigan right now had the sharpest and highest rise in the country. We're back to being a hotspot.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's, there is a good supply in Michigan of vaccine, but the question is, are people taking it? Are they taking it, and have they stopped taking precautions? So I think those are, because if you don't take the vaccine, but you also stop taking the precautions, you're not staying home, you're not physically distancing, you're traveling, because that's, in terms of the rise of variants, that has to do with, the increase of travel that's happening across the country. Another place, I think in Florida, where they really just opened it up, I think that the variants are actually the predominant strains. So, I mean, the viruses are opportunists. So,
one of the things is that the different groups are being hospitalized, and different groups are having the cases increase in Michigan. 20-year-olds have the highest increase, followed by 30-year-olds. And, this was considered to be an old people's disease. And if young people got it, they wouldn't get sick. And now we're seeing younger people being hospitalized in our state. So, and also vaccine access has been really restricted to either people who are a little older or people who have certain risk factors. And so the 65 and up seem to be doing a whole lot better than the 40s and downs right now in our state. And what I'm hearing from some young people, I saw something on Facebook, and I really, because if it's like on somebody's page and it's a good friend of mine, sometimes I respond to things like this. But it was not a close friend of mine, and they said, "Are you going to get the vaccine?" And somebody said, "No, because why did God give me an immune system?" And that was so incredibly ignorant to me. The other thing that really got me was my vaccine is vitamin D, zinc, and Jesus. And I was like, you know what? I know people think this is cool, but it's so upsetting to me. It's like even people who rejected everything else about Trumpism and the Republicanism have embraced anti-science beliefs. It's exploded them. And it's kind of hard to get people back to science. Are you seeing that at all, Dr. Thomas, in your practice? Or do you just have an incredibly smart group of people who believe that their immune systems need vaccines to protect them from certain harms?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there. So let's just start by saying that right now in Michigan, we've got about 10 million people who live in the state of Michigan. 28%, so 2.8 million people have gotten at least one dose, and 16% are fully vaccinated. And remember, we got to get up to like 60-70% to reach that ultimate herd immunity. And I believe what's happening is that people are relaxing their restrictions. They're not wearing their masks. They're hanging out at bars. They're going to restaurants. These 50% capacity limitations at some restaurants can be a joke. It's, you go out to some restaurants, they're very strict in observing it. And other places, it's like Mardi Gras. It's a free for all. And I think that the more younger people are catching the virus, because number one, they haven't been eligible for the vaccine until just now. And that just happened days ago, that people 16 and up can now get the vaccine. And they still want to party like it's a pre-pandemic because they've been cooped up for the last year. I don't blame them, but they need to hang on. As to answer your question, I think the vast majority of people are going to take the vaccine when it's their turn, when it's available to them. But unfortunately, our social media systems are set up to amplify the loudest voices, and the most outrageous takes get the most likes, the most hate, the most reactions, the most comments.
Drives me crazy.
And it blows these things out of proportion, where it's probably only like 20 to 30% of people who don't want to get the vaccine. Truly in their hearts, it'd be very difficult for them to get the vaccine, and that's fine. But their voice is an outsized influence on maybe the 20 of people who are on the fence. And we really need to get 60 to 70% of people vaccinated.
Can I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, go on.
bring this a little hyper local. Number two things. Can we talk about regionalism in terms of the vaccine and the fact that the Detroit News released an article and reported yesterday that 72% of the people who were vaccinated in Detroit as of yesterday or a few days before yesterday were white folks. Only 13.8% were Black or African American. And so I want to racialize this data in this conversation because I think it's important. Black folk in the city of Detroit were hit very hard in the beginning of the pandemic. And, you know, this Detroit being this regional center where folks from all over, white folks essentially from all over, get to come and get the vaccine. What is happening?
Well, I think one big point that we need to talk about is the structure of how we set up our vaccination centers. So if you look at how we set up TCF Center, we set it up as a drive-through system. And we know that 33% of Detroiters lack access to transportation, lack reliable access to transportation. For example, our medical assistant relies on the bus to get to the office each day. And so for us to get him the vaccine, we had to drive him to a vaccine center to get him vaccinated. And not everybody has that, a friend that they can call to get the vaccine like that. So I think we really need to address the structural problems, like relying on a car as a prerequisite to get a vaccine. So we've seen the mayor open up some local churches, but it's just not enough. We need to be more intentional about getting it out to community centers, to getting it out to doctors' offices, and to getting it out to other local organizations who can be a trusted partner to administer the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Fort Field is walk-in. And I think that that's where the 14,000 people, actually you have less of an imbalance at TCF than you do Fort Field. And that's walk-in, but it's regional.
But yeah, so how do you get to Fort Field? It can be walk-in, but you have to get there.
Right, I mean, you do have to get there. I just wanted to point out that it's not that, so, and then you have a couple churches. I think April 9th and 10th, if I'm not mistaken, the Samaritan Center is going to have vaccines. One of our partners, one of our tenants is going to be vaccinating their employees and their customers on the 1st, which is, what is that, Thursday? So we're seeing some increase in access in some ways, but I think that a big issue is knowing and understanding the process to get the access. As much as there can be a physical barrier, you had the thing where if you took somebody to get the vaccine, you drove them, you could get it if you were younger, if you lived in Wayne County. But I feel like I'm always in the know. And like, I know Dr. Thomas, you're in the know, and Orlando, you're in the know, but your average Detroiter doesn't know. And I think that it's the information barriers as much as transportation barriers that really play a significant role.
But Donna, I think the other one though is there are cultural barriers as well. The things those comments that you just read, we have to address it, right? And a lot of Blacks and African Americans are distrustful of healthcare, of they don't want the vaccine. I've seen prominent, Black people, interviewed on CNN, et cetera, and saying they're not going to get it. So it's a problem that we need to address
Some of the
as well. And I think that's...
I did a survey of 1/3 of my staff, and about 1/3 of my staff told me they don't plan on getting it. That's an anonymous survey, so I don't know which ones, but it's not this unusual voice. I think, Maritza, you are correct. In the Black community, mistrust has never been higher. It's mistrust over medicine. It is, I'm not putting that in my body. I'm not a guinea pig. Let me see what happens to other people first, and fear. So how do we get beyond that? Orlando, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that out.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to ask Dr. Thomas and Dr. McIntyre, what are some of the most common misinformation that you've heard on part of the vaccine and what it can do to you or what it won't do to you, because I've had folks, sending me things that are factually incorrect, trying to get me to regurgitate misinformation on the podcast. What are the most common misconceptions and misinformation that you've heard out there?
Yeah, I'll go first. The myth that I hear is, I don't want to get the vaccine. It's going to change my DNA.
Yep.
And there was a study that showed when people got very ill with a high viral load of coronavirus itself, they had parts of the genetic material integrated into their DNA. But when you get the vaccine is staying outside of your nucleus, outside of where your genetic material is. It's creating a protein, the spike protein, and then it's being extruded from the cell and destroyed. So it's not getting integrated into your DNA if you get the vaccine. So that's a big myth that I want to dispel. How did I do with that, Dr. McIntyre?
Perfect. You did great.
Thank you. I was worried because I had an actual virologist here.
I was getting ready. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. It can't change your DNA. It also, I've heard people say that they know someone who got coronavirus from the vaccine, and that's impossible because none of the vaccines have all of the genetic material that would allow your cells to recreate the whole coronavirus. So
thank you for saying that. Somebody texted me yesterday and I said, this is wrong. And he was going to have a whole argument with me about it.
Yeah, period.
But but then that brings us to something else. It does, right? I think, except the J&J vaccine is supposedly a one and done. All the other ones are 2 doses, and most of the vaccines you ever had as a child, there are boosters to it, because the first one, the way that vaccines work and the way your immune system works is it sees something for the first time and it says, that's not a good thing. I'm going to start building defenses. But it doesn't usually go hog wild right away unless, for example, you are actually infected, because then that pathogen, that virus or bacteria starts multiplying. And so your body keeps seeing it. But with the vaccine, where you only give a piece of it, it says, I don't think I like that. But it's really the boost when then it's like, no, this is a thing. I'm going to really build a lot of antibodies. And so it is possible that if you say, well, two things. You walked out of wherever you got the vaccine and you just whip your mask off that day and go, dancing at a bar, you're not immune yet. So you can, until you have full immunity, you can become infected, but it's not the vaccine that gave it to you. So that is when people ask, well, why, I've been vaccinated. You have to get the 2, if it's the booster, and even for the J&J, you have to wait. This takes time. Your immune system takes a good 2 weeks to get to maximal training, as it were.
Let me jump in there.
Some people do get sick. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you have to wait 28 days after you get that single dose for your immune system to ramp up. For the Pfizer vaccine, it's 1 dose at time 0, 1 dose 3 weeks later, and then you have to wait 1 week until you're fully immune. And then for the Moderna vaccine, it's 1 dose at time 0, 1 dose 4 weeks later, then you have to wait 2 weeks to be fully immune. So there is some time there. And I've seen this with my own patients where they get the first shot and then they're going out and spending time with people outside of their household and they get the virus. And so it's something we have to be cognizant of, that after we get the vaccine, we wait the appropriate amount of time.
One of the things I've also heard people talking about is their experience after the virus. And I have to be really honest, my experience after the vaccine, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
After the vaccine. I'll be honest, the first time I had the vaccine, I had a sore arm. Second time, I had about 6 hours of really bad discomfort, I'll be honest. And the only thing that got me through that 6 hours was knowing I had a vaccine that caused it, and it was going to be over soon. But it made me conscious of, oh my goodness, what if I had this as a disease? Because I didn't have a good 6-hour period, right? And obviously I didn't have the flu virus, so it wasn't going to make me sick. But I've heard some people talking about it in such a way that, oh, 2 weeks later, I don't want you to worry about it because it may not happen to you. But, you know, they're talking about it in such a way, and there's these horror stories that people like to throw around. And I think it's not constructive really to tell the horror stories. The other thing is, if you've already had COVID-19, first of all, I don't know why you need the vaccine, but you'll explain that to me. There's people who have COVID and had gone through COVID-19 and had a vaccine and had a reaction that's more similar to mine on the second day, because it's more like the booster for them, right? But then they describe it to people and say, oh my goodness, this happened the first time, so I decided not to get it the second time. So can you sort of clear up, you know, first of all, why you need to have the vaccine after you've had COVID-19, number one. And number two, some of the fears around the reactions. Because I've heard people say people have died from the reactions and all the like.
So if you get coronavirus, it may be a mild case or it may be a severe case. You may have a small immune response. You may have a large immune response. We just don't know how long your body's immune system, your defenses, will protect you from the next coronavirus or even the next variant, right? So that's why you need the vaccine. You need the vaccine basically as a booster to protect your immune system, to protect your body for the long term. And you need to get both doses. And I'm going to share something I don't really share often, but I got coronavirus early on in the pandemic. I got it in March 2020. And I also got both doses of the Pfizer vaccine. And I will take the side effects from the Pfizer vaccine any day.
Okay.
Okay. Over having coronavirus. Now I'm young. I'm 33. I was 32 at the time of getting the virus, and it put me down. Like, I'm an athlete. I can run a 7-minute mile. I play hockey. I play soccer, but the virus put me down. It made me scared. Like, I potentially could have died. I had the shakes. I had just really bad fatigue. When I got my Pfizer vaccine, I felt tired on the day after, and I had a sore arm. I took a 2-hour nap on the day after my first dose. And then after my second dose, 3 weeks later, I took like a 2.5 hour nap, which is, I guess, unusual for me. I'm usually pretty wide awake during the day. Those were my side effects from the vaccine. I would take those side effects any day over my best day after getting coronavirus, because coronavirus is scary. It's killed a lot of people. It's killed over 500,000 Americans so far. 16,000 Michiganders have died from coronavirus, and I'm lucky to be alive after getting it. And I highly recommend that people get the vaccine to protect themselves for the long term and to protect their loved ones from a potential severe infection.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Donna.
I just have one more question about vulnerability, and this takes me to something I'm really excited about. And that is, you know, you talked about Detroiters being vulnerable because of pre-existing conditions. And a lot of times we look at this and we say, okay, how do we stop this, this pandemic, you know, how do we bring this pandemic to a close? But that does not stop the vulnerability. And I'd like to spend just a couple minutes just talking about wellness, because wellness is really the issue. It's not prevention, right? It's not treatment. It's a lack of wellness resources and wellness behavior in our community. How do you see, and for me, the biggest lesson for me is to change how I eat, work out, everything, so that I can make sure that I'm, you know, committed to my own, engaged in my own wellness. But I also know a lot of people don't have access to gyms. People don't have access to creativity and other things that relieve stress. People are trapped inside their houses. So what would you think we could do between now and, I hate to say it, but the next time there's some serious health challenge out there? What can we do to protect our community better in the future?
I guess I can feel that one as well. But, this is something I think about every single day. It seems to me that, especially in the context of Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd protests, everything that's gone on over the last year and several years around policing African-American communities, it seems like poor communities have more police presence and wealthier communities have more resources. And so in Detroit, you can see that divide clearly. It's a stark contrast between wealthier communities and poorer communities. And even the wealthier communities of like the 7.2 within the city of Detroit in the outlying neighborhoods. Like, it's great that we're building a world-class riverfront, and it's great that, the Detroit Riverwalk is the #1 riverfront in America. But how do we guarantee that every Detroit child can get there safely within 5 to 10 minutes on their bike, or catch a bus there in a safe way to enjoy those cultural amenities, to enjoy those health-giving resources that make for a healthier community? And so, one of the things that I see in my neighborhood, if you're trying to get through Corktown, down Trumbull, down Rosa Parks, you've got to pass 9-lane freeways without bike lanes. And if you're a 12-year-old child who wants to go play at this forthcoming riverfront park at West Riverfront on your bike coming from like North Corktown or Core City or wherever, how the hell are you going to get there in a safe way where your parents are going to feel comfortable with you going all that distance? It's just not going to happen. So we really need to be intentional about building the infrastructure to make sure that these community resources, these regional and even national resources, are shared equitably in the community. And, that's something I've talked about at these community planning meetings that we have in Corktown, and it's really just brushed aside, and it makes me sad and angry. But this is a really hot topic that we should talk about until we're blue in the face and make some noise about.
Yeah, Donna, I think it comes down to equity, right? And it's interesting, Paul, that you mentioned, George Floyd. And a white person told me last year during the protest that she's like, Black Lives Matter has done so much, they've done such a great job. And I told her, I was like, they have, but what changed? The reason why people are out in the street is because white people changed. White people saw a cop kneel on a Black man's neck and have the life drained out of him. And we need to see how the inequities that have been there in our communities have just laid us bare and vulnerable to COVID, and talk not only about equity, about getting access to the vaccine, but going on, keeping that conversation going to restoring health and wellness.
So I'm really excited to get your responses, because ECN is actually transforming our headquarters into a wellness and resilience hub. And we're going to hopefully be able to bring you in, Dr. Thomas, to provide some community education, health education to the people inside of our center. We want to engage in more proactive screening for diseases so that people don't find out they have diabetes when they go into a coma. They don't find out they have hypertension when they have a stroke. We have so many people who have pre-existing conditions and they don't even know they have them. They say, oh, they weren't even sick. Yes, they were, but nobody's monitoring their health. The other thing is, imagine if we were able to deliver vaccines and testing in a site inside the community where people inside the community were used to coming, right? They didn't have to come there and start coming because, let me figure out how to get here. But this is a place I consider my place.
That's
we
right.
don't have a workout place in our community. And when we do, people can't afford it. We need to make sure that people can get to the Riverwalk because public dollars went there, but we need to make sure people have resources where they live. because you shouldn't have to go to a river walk to exercise, right? Or you
Fine.
shouldn't have to go to Copo to get things. So I'm really excited, and we're trying to build this movement around wellness and resilience hubs, not just what we're doing, but in the community as a model to say, we've got to look at global climate change, because the only reason we're not talking about the climate right now is because we're talking about COVID. If we weren't talking about COVID, we might look at the climate and understand that it didn't stop, right? Winter is still coming into our communities, or I should say, summer is coming, and it's going to be unending. And so how do we really deal with air quality issues and all of these other vulnerabilities? So I'm excited to talk to you about this. I think it's important that people understand facts about their bodies, about viruses and all of that, and then that we invest in how people live. You know, part of wellness is not even healthcare. It's not healthcare related. It's, do I have places to go for recreation? Is there a place where I can learn to draw, where I can sing, where I can just be around people and not be socially isolated like so many of our seniors are inside of our community? So I am really, you know, it's a call to action to anybody who's listening, and certainly you, Dr. Thomas, because I hear you're coming to Harbortown. Is that just a rumor, or will you be coming our way a little bit?
We're in Corktown. We're in Corktown, and we've been there
Oh, I know you're
for
in
the
Corktown.
last year and a half. We tried to come into Corktown, but certain building owners have contracts with certain large health systems, and so we were not
yeah, I know who's in Harbortown.
Oh, yeah,
permitted.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you know what? As an Eastside Community Development Corporation, I love your model. I think what you're doing is outstanding, and people in our community can use it. So let's have conversations offline about how to either replicate what you're doing on the East Side or have you expand what you're doing. I know because I mean, you provide, and we haven't talked about this, but you provide healthcare services to people without insurance, don't you?
That's right. About 50% to a third of our patients are uninsured, and a lot of our patients are underinsured, and they can afford $10 a month for their kids, and $50 a month is our starting rate for adults for excellent, high quality, affordable healthcare. And so that's what we deliver out of our Corktown office.
We need that all through the community, all through Detroit. We need to not have insurance or lack thereof be a barrier to healthcare. We don't need people to be afraid of bills to go to the doctor and say, well, I don't have enough money right now to go to the doctor. And, you know, there was a time years ago between insurances where I could not take my children to a doctor for about 2 months because we were in between insurances. And that's the scariest time in anybody's life. And some people just live like that. So
can I just jump in and say that we need to figure out a way to insure people outside of them being employed. I mean, really, it should not be hinged upon full-time employment, and the pandemic has laid bare just how inequitable and asinine that really is. This conversation has been really great, enlightening, and eye-opening, and I hope that everyone who's listening will share it, and I hope that Dr. McIntyre and Dr. Thomas would share it broadly, because this is a on-time conversation. Listen, if you have topics that you want discussed on the podcast, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. It is time for shout outs. Donna, I got a couple. And you remember how when you got the Columbia gig, how I tried to make every sentence about you being at Columbia? Well, I got to figure out how to incorporate this next shout out into my every sentence. A year into making the leap into the journalism field, I found out on Friday that I got a merit award from the Michigan Association of Broadcasters for co-producing and co-hosting a series on American Black Journal on PBS's affiliate, Detroit Public Television, alongside Stephen Henderson. And the series was entitled Do Black Lives Matter in America? And it was in the wake of the summer full of protests that we saw all over the world. We got a merit award from the MAB, and I'm like stoked. I'm stoked. That was the confidence boost that
it's amazing, man.
Thank you. So I really want
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm so
Yes.
excited.
But you know what? I'm so proud of Orlando. I'm always letting him know. I told him he is Detroit's own Trevor Noah. And I can see him because Orlando can talk to everybody and he just spreads happiness and joy and just has this ability to have difficult conversations with a smile on his face and keep it moving. Really blessed by his talent. He was at ECN for I think 11 years. For
8 years.
8 years. And in fact, he's still at ECN 50 right now. I can look at that picture and see we can't get rid of him. So he's still there. No, he's a real blessing. So Orlando, shout out to you for your work, and shout out because in a couple weeks, Orlando's going to be coming to my class at Columbia and speaking on speaking truth to power. So I'm really excited because I think that truth to power is, or maybe it's next week. I think next week is our truth to power conversation where students have heard all about the challenges in our community. And next week, you're going to be bringing some of the organizing ways that we build power in our populations.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for that. But I want to give kudos to the production team at Detroit Public Television who work on American Black Journal, Daphne and Stephen and everybody there, as well as Bridge Detroit. It was a collaborative process. We did not do it on our own, but I just can't believe we got a merit award my first time out the gate. Also, shout out to medical students at Wayne State University who formed this collaborative called Healing Between the Lines, where they educate medical students around, social determinants of health, and then really what's happening outside of medical school on the streets of Detroit to help, get them ready for how and why people show up in the doctor's offices the way that they do. And I guest lectured at the Healing Between the Lines a couple of weeks ago, and it was a tremendous experience. A shout out to all of the students and the faculty there. Donna, shout outs.
Well, you know what? Our very own Savannah Brewer is working with Healing Between the Lines, and we're trying to figure out how to address more issues and get communities more involved in healthcare. So I'm glad to hear that you're also working with them. Because we're focused on healthcare today and because we understand what's happening with COVID, I really want to shout out all of the doctors, the nurses, the researchers, everybody, because listen, we could criticize anything about it, but my experience at TCF was beautiful, okay? I drove in, I drove out, and I hear Fort Field is even faster. So there's so many people who are committing themselves to healing this pandemic. I want to shout out Dr. Thomas. I did not know of your work, but I knew of the Plum Healthcare Center. I just didn't know you because I don't watch television. I need to start watching TV so I can see superstars. And of course, my cousin Maritza, shout out to you. So proud of you for all that you do. And thank you for the second time for coming to our community, coming home via Zoom so that you can spread your knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks for having me as well. You guys are too kind, and this has been an amazing conversation.
Likewise. All right.
All right.
Well,
Thank you.
I can't wait to reconnect with you, Dr. Thomas. We'll do it soon.
Yes. I love that.
All right, everybody. We thank you for listening. We want you to catch the wave.